Okay, on the video I did yesterday on computers, I left the comments open, thinking, people might be interested, kind of reminisce on them old computers. And I actually prefer to leave comments closed, but I thought this would be interesting, so I left them open. But whenever I do that, I always get odd comments from other videos. People just can't resist doing that. And I try to keep things, the comments should be relative to the current video. I mean, it's all right. Sometimes people, it's the only chance they get to ask me a question or something, and that's all right. So I leave them be, and I'll eventually get around to answering them. But really, it just takes a lot of time to do all the comments. But in amongst a bunch of comments, there was one that said, "Oh, I noticed you haven't done a political video lately." Now the implication of this was that because in theory the election was won by Biden, who I'm totally against, that I was just being quiet about this. Actually, in truth, when I went and deleted that comment because again it's not relevant to the video. But I actually had done a video the other day on the political scene, but I found when I got done that my batteries had died on the camera, so I had been talking for a half hour, and it wasn't recorded. It recorded about 5 minutes of it. So I just ditched that video, and I don't typically redo a video. If something goes wrong, it usually just gets scratched. And part of the reason I haven't been doing the political stuff, though I did finally get new batteries, so I'm set for a year now, but part of it was, this isn't over. I mean, the election is not over by a long shot. It's funny, because I'm not really pro-Trump, but I am definitely not for Biden. I mean, that's just bizarre. But, like I say, there's a lot of stuff they got to work through yet. I keep my eye on this, but, there was, they keep saying, oh, there was no fraud involved in this. That's what they keep trying to tell you. But that simply isn't true. I know at first they were saying there was no fraud, and well, there might have been a little, all these dead people voting, that kind of gets to be a problem. But there's more stuff coming out all the time, and like I say, this isn't over by a long shot. There's going to be, even if they finally decide to go ahead and put Biden in to say, okay, he won, there's still a lot of stuff to be hashed out because nobody is going to trust the system again. The whole thing with all these, like dead people voting and all this stuff, okay, that wasn't really a big organized thing. It was a small organized thing. But the making up of all these ballots and stuff, I mean, that was like let's say a more like a statewide thing. But on a national scale, dealing with these voting machines, I would have thought by now they would have had that straightened out, but they have made a horrible mess of this. The voting machines themselves and then the software that they're running on these voting machines, they're just ripe for fraud. It's just incredible. You talk to the experts on this stuff and they say, what in the world are you pretending to do here? It's ridiculous, really. And then you look and you see that like the major stockholders in these Dominion machines are all these big Democratic you know, and like the head of the software company is now on Biden's transition team. There's just so many problems involved in this that, you know, it's just ridiculous, really. I know I had a laugh. I saw this one little segment where, you know, they were doing this run and vote tally, and it came to the top of the hour, and they updated it. I don't remember what state this was in, but it just made me laugh. The absurdity of this, that right when they updated, all of a sudden, Biden's numbers increased. You know, the vote total jumped up, and Trump's jumped down. The exact same amount that Trump's went down is what Biden's went up. Okay, now, logically, this can't happen. You can't, you know, when you're totaling up a number, you can't suddenly end up dropping. You know, you can drop percentage-wise, but you can't drop the actual numbers, and they dropped the actual numbers. You know, some of this was just so flagrant. You know, I don't know if it's a matter of incompetence or that they just didn't really care if you saw what was going on, because, but like I say, this has got to be hashed out, and it's going to take a long time to do that. And I don't know how they can, you know, like now, they're bound and determined that Biden should be on these national security, these briefings. Well, in the first place, he doesn't have a security clearance. In the second place, right now, our greatest threat to national security is Biden. How can you have him on these briefings? It's bad enough that Harris is involved with these briefings. And everything that goes on goes right to Biden, and from Biden, God only knows where it goes. You know, so there's... But okay, if they should decide to make him president-elect, you know, like that's when the trouble is really going to start. But hopefully it won't even go that far. I mean, they keep putting it off, and I hope that they can stall this, because they have to get this whole voter fraud situation straightened out. But like I say, I don't know how you possibly can. That is such a mess. The good part, you know, people always, when they saw Giuliani in there, I mean, he's a character, but people would kind of make jokes and wouldn't take him seriously what he was saying, because he's just a character. But now they do have that Sidney Powell working on this. And she is tough. I don't think you're going to joke around with her. So they're going to have to take her seriously. But like I say, you know, until this works itself out, which is going to be a while. So in the meantime, I don't know, you know. But like I say, I'm not really pro-Trump, but I'm for things being done on the level, you know, and this was not by any means done on the level. There's always a certain amount of fraud, like I say, with the dead people and all this stuff. Some areas are just notorious for this. But when you start just doing it on a massive scale, you know, like the software is designed with that in mind, you know, and even then, we had to recalibrate it because it wasn't doing enough, you know, like their idea is that the software should never exceed over like 3%. It should look like, oh, it was a close race. It should always look that way. It shouldn't be wild. Well, the software couldn't keep up, so they had to do a little modified. So they had to shut down counting so they could modify it, you know. And even like they did a patch on the software one day before the election, and then that wasn't doing it, so then they had to go in and patch it again, you know. Just, I can't believe that you would have, you know, I thought they were beyond that they wouldn't have these things able to be connected to the internet, or that you wouldn't have the ability to go and reprogram with a thumb drive in the middle of something, it's a hell of a mess. But this election isn't over by a long shot. But it isn't like I was avoiding doing it. Like I say, I actually did a video and then I had to scrap it. But I don't really have that big of an interest in politics. It's something I play around with. Like I say, it's a whodunit kind of thing. But I have found if I do a video on the politics now, that seems to be a money-making deal. I do a video, I'll talk for 15, 20 minutes, I'll make $40 or $50 on this stupid video. Telling you things that you should already know if you were paying attention, or if our news media was actually being fair about this, which they aren't by any means. Well, in fact, it's silly. I mean, some of these people that are in the news media are now on Biden's transition team. The whole thing was rigged from the get-go. It's so funny, I saw Obama making a speech one day talking, and he had a list of things that, this is bad about the... Everything on this list was stuff that the Democrats have been doing all the time. And he's blaming it on the Republicans. It was just crazy. It was bizarre. I guess anytime if somebody on the liberal wing of this outfit starts accusing somebody of something, then right there, it's like their guilt showing. They're accusing you of something that they are guilty of. Every time. But, like I say, I don't really give a rat's ass one way or the other. It doesn't matter to me. But I like to see things done fairly. And this was not fair by any means. So I'm glad to see that Powell is working on this. This is the job. There are people whose job it was to ensure that this was secure. But immediately when a problem comes up, what do? They quit. They quit their job because, my God, you're asking them to actually do their job. They like the position. They don't want to do the job. So the people that are supposed to keep track of these problems, they just immediately quit. They have a lot to answer for. But it ain't over. It ain't over by a long shot. It's going to get ugly. But even, if they manage by some miracle to sweep this all under the rug, they actually get to the point of putting Biden in. Can you imagine the disaster that's just waiting on the horizon? I mean, already he's talking to all these other countries. He's trying to stir up trouble all over the place, which is bumping right up against the Logan Act. So he'll be lucky if he doesn't actually get in a jam for what he's doing now. But if he gets into power, we're back into all kinds of wars again. I mean, he's already eyeballing Syria, thinking we got to get involved there again. Because the Pentagon is really, they like him. The whole military-industrial complex, they like Biden because he's a warmonger. So they're hoping, I mean, they're doing everything they can. CIA, they're right in there with him. The whole operation is corrupt from one end to the other. So how can you expect fair play in this? But we'll see. Like I say, it ain't over. Not by a long shot. But gotta let it play out, that's all. But I'm glad to see that they actually have that Paul working on this. And this stuff always comes out. I don't know why people think they can pull something this obvious. You know, like I say, I was able to watch it on television live as they changed this boat thing. You know, it can't be hidden. I mean, it helps if you've got all the news media on your side. You can kind of, but if you look beyond them and look at the actual facts of what is really going on, it's a whole nother story. It's very disappointing, but the ridiculous statements that they make that, oh, this is the most honest election we've ever had, and it is probably the most crooked one we've ever had. I mean, there's always a certain degree of this, so they don't even like to admit that. But this time, they just went all out. But they were in a position where they had to. These people are in so deep into this that if they get burned on it this time, they're done. You know, and the thing is, like I said before, when you get them down, you put them down for good. You don't let them come creeping back. Even now, like I said about Hillary, she's angling now. She wants to be, well, for the moment, at least temporarily, would love to be ambassador to the UN. Oh my God, you want Hillary in there stirring up trouble? I mean, there's no sure way to get a war going than to put Hillary in a position like that. I didn't care for even that Nikki Haley that was in there. I would watch these when she was speaking to the UN, and I'd sit there and watch her just plain lie, just make stuff up. And then they're going to put Hillary in there, and she's going to do even worse. You know, how in the world? We look horrible. On the world stage, our country looks despicable. And we're going to get even worse. You know, like this now, going back and starting in Syria again, trying to cause trouble there. We tried to cause trouble in Turkey, but they caught on in a hurry because nobody trusts us anymore. You know, we keep trying to overthrow people's governments, and we did try it in Turkey, and they're even a NATO member, you know. So they don't trust us. But nobody in their right mind would trust us in our overseas little endeavors. The whole thing of trying to overthrow a government, and now basically they're trying to overthrow our government. But to just let that slide, you know, they got to get to the bottom of this. Nobody will ever trust the voting again. You can't. Not after you see if you really see what went on in this one. And I don't know how you're going to keep it buried. You know, you can lie, the media can lie all they want, but the truth is always going to come out. You know, there's records of all this stuff. You know, they're trying to bury it, but it's all there yet. And there's always somebody who's going to squeal. You know, you get that many corrupt people trying to pull off a little plot like this. Eventually, somebody's going to squeal on the whole pile. So, it's a long way to go. I'm not going to worry about it. But no, I'm not pro-Trump, but I'm really not for Biden. I know what's going to come with that. They are up to no good whatsoever. You know, the whole pack of them. It's funny, I noticed the other day they said it was like, in just a short period of time, like 300,000 families had moved out of New York. And now the same thing is happening on the West Coast. People are moving out, not just people, but whole families are moving. Well, they made that mess, now they can't live with it. But you really got to watch, because them bastards are moving right into your neighborhood. and they are going to bring that rot and corruption with them. I think you gotta you gotta stop them at the border. If there's a license plate out of New York or California, turn them bastards around. You really don't want them. But they made their life there untenable, and they're gonna come and they're gonna make yours untenable. I really would love to see it. Just split this damn country up, because we have what are referred to as we have differences. Irreconcilable. What I can't remember what the hell the term is for it. That they use in divorces all the time. That's what we need. We just need a divorce from the two coasts. We got to get away from them. We can't get along with them. We look at things completely differently. But the corruption they got going on now, and now they're going to throw everything at these Senate races that are going to run off. And this is a horrible situation where in that particular state, you can actually say, you can claim residence, you can go down there and vote the next day. Claiming, yep, you're going to continue to live there. Is anyone going to check if these people are going to continue to live there? They're going to be bussing people in. They were saying, there was a call out for, does anybody have a room to rent? So they can bring in these people to move in temporarily, so they have an address to give, so they can register to vote in this runoff, trying to get Democrats in. Corruption like that, you can't let that happen. But this is just par for the course. Yeah, well, back to work, but it ain't over. That's all. It just ain't over. It ain't going to be over for a long time. It's going to take years to get to the bottom of this. But in the meantime, I have no idea what's going to happen, but it's going to be ugly.